Welcome to Ant and Rabbit. I am Ant. He is Rabbit. We are here to have a lovely little chat here, as we record on a Friday morning, late morning for you, about 9:30 for me. How you doing? How you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. I am off of work. I'm hanging out, chatting with you. It's gorgeous outside. I'm pretty happy with my day so far.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, 2,000 miles away here in the Portland area, we also have a very beautiful day. I'm excited. Hopefully, this is the turnaround where it sticks, where we actually get summer into, or I'm sorry, spring into summer here, but not as wild as what you guys have, of course.
No, this is the last day of spring, and then I believe tomorrow. Oh, I'm looking at the weather right now. It's supposed to be 45 degrees and pouring rain all weekend long. So yeah,
Well, hey,
that's
that's
it's
that's
Wisconsin.
that's our normal over
Yeah.
here. um, okay, tell me, what'd you eat today?
So I made myself a lunch today, and I got to thinking the other day, why don't they put popcorn on pizza?
What brought about this thought? Because you're
I
a
don't
popcorn guy?
I don't remember. I might have heard something. I don't know what incepted this idea into my brain, but I became obsessed with it like 2 days ago of like I can't wait till Friday because I'm going to combine these two great ideas. I'm mixing the peanut butter and the chocolate.
Because these are big time movie night snacks,
Yeah,
right?
these
Like
are like
you
my
get
favorite things.
yeah.
So I did it today. And I took pizza, I took popcorn and hot sauce and incorporated three of my favorite things. And I played around with it because I wasn't sure. What do you do? Do you pop the popcorn, put it on the pizza? Do you put the kernels on the popcorn and hope they all pop and you don't break a tooth eating pizza?
That's interesting, especially with like pepperoni pizza grease.
Right.
Like I wonder how is
So I
that enough
tried
to pop
both.
yeah, okay.
I did a half and half on my pizza.
Yeah.
I put popped popcorn on one side and then I sacrificed another bag of popcorn in order to just put a handful of kernels on the other side of the and threw that sucker in the oven and doused it in hot sauce and cooked that thing up. And the popcorn's really soggy.
I thought it might be. I
It's
thought it
kind of
might be.
mushy.
Yeah. I guess that was my worry is like when you put it on, or are you gonna pat the pizza for grease if you pre-popped the corn? Is this
Yeah.
from and this is okay, like what kind of popcorn was it? Is it not microwave, or did you do a microwave and then throw it on, or
So I popped a bag of microwave popcorn and then I used regular popping corn for the other half.
okay.
So at least I have like most of a bag of good popcorn still sitting on the counter because I only took a handful of the popped popcorn and threw it on, and that turned out incredibly soggy and gross and turned into like a paste by the time I got to the third piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
What kind
think I realized why they don't do that on a regular basis.
that you were somehow the first person to think of this.
Not big, not a big
Uh,
idea.
what kind of pizza? Like a frozen, like tombstone kind of situation, cardboard frozen?
Yeah, I believe it was a DiGiorno rising crust, perhaps. It's a pepperoni.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a classy gentleman. I didn't just go with like, Jack's
Orbs.
pizza. Yeah,
Yeah.
Orbs pizza.
That's about where I draw my line between good and bad pizza, or not good and bad, but what is acceptable, I guess, is
Yeah.
Orbs is on the bottom side of I won't do it, whereas Jack's is the first pizza, maybe with Red Baron, the first pizza on the side of that line where yes, I will eat this frozen pizza and be
Yeah, I
okay with
think
it.
I think that's about right for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not super discerning, but yeah, Orbs is like, okay, we go any lower than this. Am I going to the dollar store to buy a pizza? What am I
Yeah,
doing here?
yeah. Orbs is about as bottom level as it gets.
Yeah.
And you said pepperoni. Okay. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. I like where your head's at. I like that you're trying new things.
Hey, speaking of trying new things, have you tried the new
Oh my god. I was gonna ask you what you're drinking, but that's awesome.
drinking a delicious
Please
blue
tell everybody.
raspberry prime sports drink from the great Paul brothers,
That's right.
Yeah, good stuff. I like the blue and I like the red, and everything else tastes like kerosene to me.
Oh god. Okay. So it's the Logan Paul and
Mhm.
Jake Paul, the fighting brothers slash I don't know, boxers, MMA slash wrestling
Yeah, something.
something
Entertainers.
entertainers, YouTubers, if you will. Where did you pick that up? And what it's is it like a post? It's it's an energy drink or it's kind of like a post-workout thing, or I lost you. I can't hear you right now. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hold on. Hi,
Oh, there
hi.
we go. Oh, you're back. Hey, I can hear you.
I think I
Now,
bumped.
yeah, there might be an issue with the cord.
Yeah, it's a cord issue we're dealing with here.
Okay.
Um, so they deem this a sports drink as opposed to. Oh no, it does say energy drink right here. It's got some caffeine. It's got no sugar. Got electrolytes. It's vegan. So
Wow.
not many of my drinks are vegan. A lot of animal fats in most of my drinks.
This video is getting flagged for promotion.
It sure is. I got to put a hashtag ads. It's good. It's fine. It's it's fine.
Is that everywhere now? I've only seen it
No,
from him promoting it on wrestling, so I
I
don't
believe
know.
you can go to. I believe it's only at like Walmart, CVS, and like some other grocery stores. So I was at. Something's going on with my cord here. Oh, I see what's wrong.
It's that damn dog. You're down again.
Hold on. Sorry about this.
At least it didn't get your curse word.
No, that's good. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I've been going out. I went and got a delicious energy drink thing this morning at the Walmart, and yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Testing.
Weird things are happening here on my
Weird.
end.
Yeah, I think it just switched microphones, but now it's back to your regular microphone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Continue, sir.
All right.
Go ahead and talk while I mess with something.
Sure. So one of the things we want to get into today is, I guess, how Jameson and I have been spending our time. Jameson has been involved with potentially hosting a film festival. Well, so we'll talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about some big movies that, I'm not as in the movie scene or watch things as they come out as often as I should. So I'll, of course, see a movie that was big 10 years ago and have to run and tell Jameson to talk about it. So we'll get some of that today. Last week I took a trip to Seattle to see the Milwaukee Brewers play against the Seattle Mariners. That was really cool. I love different ballparks, and especially in baseball, and like every baseball or every basketball court and football field, like, it's 94 feet for basketball, it's 100 yards in football. Everything is kind of set up the same way. Most of the stadiums are similar. You can have some character to it, more so in football with outdoor stadiums and the combination of indoor, outdoor, and how they do the grass and turf compared to a basketball arena. But baseball stadiums, I think, are the most fun, at least in the States. All the parks are different, whether that be the sizes of the dimensions of the field.
That's the crazy part, right? Is nothing standard.
It's not uniform. Literally every ballpark is different. And I think that's such a cool thing.
Yeah.
And the dimensions, in addition to, of course, the climate, if you're indoors, if you're outdoors, is there a retractable roof? How not just how far the walls are from home plate, but how tall the walls are. I mean, you think about the Green Monster in Fenway, and some of these are absolute museums and historical. Fenway Park, of course, Wrigley Field, of course. Then you have teams like the Yankees and Cardinals who build a new stadium and call their new stadium the old stadium's name, and now there's been at least 3 Yankee stadiums, and we're on at least our second Busch Stadium. Which is, I don't know, it's all very interesting how that works, and just keeping the sponsorship rights or whatever it might be.
I don't like that.
Yankees. Yeah,
like I couldn't imagine the Knicks building a new building and calling it the Madison Square Garden. Like, no, that's not the Madison Square Garden. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it should be called something else. Like Yankee Stadium was the one for me, it's the one on Seinfeld. You know what I mean? So when they built the new one, like 15 years ago, we'll say, and won the World Series within the first couple of years of that ballpark being open.
Yeah.
That's what I think of. And even Busch Stadium for the Cardinals, like it's, they say new Busch or whatever, but I don't quite get that. I like what the Tigers did, where it was Tiger Stadium. And I did see it before it was knocked down. I went to a Packers Lions game and was able to go past Tiger Stadium and then next to Ford Field where the Lions play. is Comerica, where the Tigers play. And they, once
Right.
again, I don't understand also newer stadiums being built without a roof in baseball. The one sport that has rainouts.
Yeah.
I still don't quite understand that. Minnesota, another, I don't get that one. Like, why are you not putting at least a retractable roof on
Right.
these stadiums? I'll never
You know what your
understand.
weather's like the first week of April.
And well, yeah, and like Wrigley Field makes sense, right? And Fenway, I
Right,
get
right.
that. But any other new parks, I just don't quite understand. The Yankee Stadium would be another one. The Met Stadium, I just don't understand. And then they'll schedule these teams to play in their first games, like opening day this year in Chicago at Wrigley Field in one of the last few days of March, I should say. And of course, like you're gonna be dealing with awful weather. I've never quite
Yeah, you'd
understood
think
that.
that they would start the season like everyone plays the Florida, Arizona, Texas teams the first week of the season. Just to like, why is Cleveland hosting a game the opening day? Like, no, they should be on the
Exactly.
roads somewhere
Yes,
south or in a dome.
exactly. And it's funny too because then you also have the situation where Miller Park, now American Family Field, where the Milwaukee Brewers play. Of course, most of us know and are probably from Wisconsin. Most people
Mhm.
listening, um, that because it has a roof, that Miller Park, American Family Field, AmFam Field, whatever, has hosted other games that couldn't be played by teams. So I
Yeah.
remember in maybe 2006, 2007, I watched the Angels play the Indians, the
Yep.
Cleveland Indians at the time, now the Guardians, play in a game that there was snowstorms in Cleveland and they just they could not get the teams there. They couldn't have, also so you have that situation. Then also the first no hitter thrown at the ballpark, Miller Park, I'll always call it that, so it'll just be
Hmm.
Miller Park to me, was thrown by a Cubs pitcher, Carlos
Right.
Zambrano, but it was against, I believe, the Astros. So you've had another situation where the Cubs couldn't play in Chicago and had to move it to, and it's also they've had situations where just other teams use Miller Park for things like that. But then, of course, Miller Park already gets a lot of Cubs fans, and then
Yeah.
maybe it was an Astros home game, but then, of course, turns into but it was really cool going to see the Angels versus Indians game there. I got to see Vlad Guerrero,
Sure.
and it was like people from fans of all over showed up. Like I saw Minnesota Twins fans, I saw White Sox fans, there was Cubs fans. We were getting to see American League Baseball, which we never get to see.
Hmm.
And getting to see Vlad Guerrero even just as a DH was awesome for me.
I love
Like
that.
it's one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
Um, what different ballparks have you been to? Have you?
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in northern Wisconsin. Went to a lot of. I was a huge Twins fan. Um, they started rooting for the Twins the year they went to the World Series in '87. So I went to a lot of Metrodome games, and at the time thought, "Oh man, what a great stadium!" So it was the only stadium I'd been to. Like, this is really cool. This is where baseball is.
Yes.
And then going to County Stadium and going to the new the new Camden Yards,
Oh,
and
really?
realizing, oh yeah, the Metrodome's a dump. Like, that's
Yeah.
horrible. That's a football stadium, and a poor one at that. Um, so yeah, I've seen a few. I really loved when I was this is probably 90. What year was the baseball strike where
94,
94?
94, I
It was
believe.
94. I went to a Dodgers Expos game at Chavez Ravine in
Oh,
LA.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. Getting to see the Expos before they became not a team, right?
Yeah.
And the Expos were on their way towards winning the division at the time.
Oh, wait a second. You saw the 94 Expos.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So
This was the summer of
oh, wow.
summer '94. I used to go out to California every summer and see relatives and spend the majority of the summer out there. And that year I got to go to a Dodgers game. Expos were in town. It was a blast. And it was the most gorgeous ballpark, the backdrop of the mountains. Like, oh my
Yes.
God, it's incredible. And it was fun baseball. And then it was shortly thereafter the season was suspended. Like,
Yeah.
nothing matters anymore.
And well, that's kind of a very historical team because the Expos were like the best team in baseball when the season gets shut down.
Yeah.
and they had all of these guys who went on to be superstars, but on other teams, if
They
I'm
were a
not
farm
mistaken.
system for everyone else in the league.
I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I mean,
They had Larry Walker.
Larry Walker, Randy Johnson.
No, I don't.
Not that was
No, he was in
before.
Seattle at that point.
Okay. Pedro Martinez,
I don't remember if Pedro was on that team or not. 94.
Vlad Guerrero.
Vlad was there. Moises was there. Marquise Grissom, I believe, was still on the team at the time. Yeah, they had a team. They had a lot of guys who you would know on other clubs.
Yeah, that's just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Pedro Martinez, Cliff Floyd, Will
Yeah.
Cordero, Moises Alou, Marquise Grissom, Larry Walker.
Yeah.
Insane. I'm not seeing Vlad for some reason, but maybe he joined the team within a couple years, but once again ended up going somewhere else to be awesome.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So yeah, Dodger Stadium, one of the more beautiful ones. Got to go to Camden Yards early on.
What were you doing? What brought you to Baltimore?
So for the first time we went out there, we were out on a school field trip, and they were just built. We got to go see it, and it hadn't opened yet. Like, this is where we're up in the warehouse district. Like, that's going to be the new ballpark that opens next year. Like, that's awesome. And then my family and I went on a trip 2 years later, and I was like, I want to go see that stadium that I saw them building. And
so was it like a Washington D.C. trip kind of thing that brought you to that area, and then a couple years later you came back with family when the ballpark was ready?
Right. Yeah. We went. It was So the first time I went, gosh, now I'm trying to remember. I've been to DC a few times. It was either a choir trip or it was one of those like middle school trips. Like all these 8th graders went. Regardless,
Sure.
it was a
that
school
was
trip.
classic. Yeah, I feel like that's like pretty common, the DC trip for 8th graders. But I do love the idea of you singing choir.
I was a big choir boy. Yeah.
Well, tell me more.
Because we did go to DC in high school. Our choir went out there, took the bus out to DC to sing and all that stuff. So, but I think Camden Yards was already open at that point. So I think it was my 8th grade trip. But yeah, regardless, I'm not singing. So
okay, I was gonna say, what range are we in? Is this pre-puberty before you got your beautiful voice that we hear today?
Yeah, this beautiful voice brought to you by menthol cigarettes.
Oh, too good.
Yeah.
So you've been to some legendary ones. Yeah, God, I love your list. Mine pales in comparison. I've got a handful, but it's one of those things where I would love to do at least scratch one new one off every year, or two if I can, because I love those things, and those documentaries are people just showing themselves at all the different parks and getting to as many as possible, and going to ones that don't exist anymore. Like County Stadium is on my list, of course. Miller Park, I've been there probably over 100 times at this point, and remember even going to a tour before it fully opened up. Went to Progressive Field, which was the new Jacobs Field where the Guardians now play, formerly the Indians. It was my friend's 21st birthday, and we had a great time. It was kind of the same situation that the Brewers, the way things changed, they changed the schedule this year. So teams that didn't used to play each other now play each other every year. But at the time, the Brewers would only go to Cleveland once every 6 years, 5-6 years.
6 years, yeah.
So we made the trip. We did a road trip to Cleveland from Madison and got to see, a game there. And that was a great time. I actually really loved my time in Cleveland. It was June. It was beautiful. Nice. Walking around, seeing museums and stuff like that, and just having a good time. That was a great one. I've seen other ballparks as well. I've been to Wrigley a couple times, once for Brewers Cubs, and then also for a Journey and Def Leppard concert a few years back.
Killer.
Wrigley Field is great. I mean, it's as old as, like, you believe it, of how old it is and why it's historical, like pissing in the trough and everything like that.
Yeah.
And God, I'm trying to think of, I think that's it. Other than last week, I added what was Safeco Field in Seattle and is now T-Mobile Park. A lot of similarities to Miller Park in terms of when it was built, how it was built, and the setup of the stadium, and even the colors and the backdrop. Like, there's really a lot of similarities. Oh, and cool. It was a great time. It was an absolutely great time. It's me and my buddy, my roommate, we walked up and we're thinking, Tuesday night. We're hoping to stay the night and go to a Tuesday night game and then a Wednesday day game, and just get the cheapest tickets, because it's with baseball in April on a weeknight and even a weekday game, you're not going to get the fans that you would get in the summer.
Right.
Like, school's in session, a lot of people aren't going to games yet. It's so early in the season. And so basically we just walked up and wanted the cheapest tickets, and it was great because we're Brewers fans. The ticket taker was from Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to get you guys set up." It was $22 for 2 tickets to sit in like first level outfield bleachers.
Oh, heck yeah.
Never made it to our seats. So we had some fun. We were partying a little bit, and we get in, and we're trying to, I want to see as much of the ballpark as possible. We weren't sure we were going to come back for the next day, and we're like trying to get to see as much as we can. And we go up to the elevators, take us all the way up, and talking to the lady who's kind of telling us a little bit about the ballpark. And we're like, how do someone got off at the press level, and where you can only get into certain levels with certain tickets and all this stuff. And we're like, well, how do we get in there? And she's kind of giving us hints at what to do, where to go, and what to say to who about how to get into this certain area that for tickets that we don't have.
Right.
And we're on the elevator again. We run into a couple parents of a Brewers pitcher, a guy who'd just been called up, Jansen Junk. And so we're like, well, maybe we say we know them now, or what do we say? So the lady who's running the elevator, we come back to her. She drops us off at the basement, and she's kind of like, well, she's like, if you want to get up there, tell them you want Beecher's pasta. And we're like, what? And she's like, yeah, just, you got to tell them something.
It's a code word.
Yeah. And like, you can only get this pasta on this certain level, which is similar to the 300 level at Miller Park in AmFam, if you're familiar with that. So you can only get there if you have those tickets. And so the lady drops us off in the basement, where it's only clubhouse players and team personnel and things like that. And she's like, I'm going to drop you off down there and just walk to the elevator. So we get down there right away. They can tell we're not supposed to be there. We're 2 dudes in Brewers gears, clearly fans, just kind of stumbling around. And this lady in a suit jacket walks up. She's like, do you guys need something? What's going on down here? We're like, we're just saying whatever we can. Like, we're here for pasta. Our buddies' parents are. You're trying all the excuses, throwing everything,
just peppering them,
whatever we can, just talking over each other until they get confused and figure something out. And she's like, well, you can only, we're like, yeah, well, we really want this pasta. She's like, well, you can only do that on this certain level. We're like, yeah, it's our first time here, and whatever, anything we can say, right? So she's like, she's being a really good ambassador, and she is like, I'll take you guys up there. She's telling us about the stadium when it was built. It's almost like a mini tour that she's giving us through, and bringing us up to the elevator using her security clearance and whatever. And so we get up to that level, and she's walking us around and telling us history and things like that. And I'm just having a blast. And she's like, all right, well, here's where the pasta is, and just remember, you can't just hang out up here once you're done, okay? But then she walks away. And we get our pasta, and then we go right into the seats where we're not supposed to go, of course.
Absolutely.
Walk up front row on the 200 level it is, and we've got our pasta, we're hanging out, and then 2 Mariners fans sit right next to us, and we're like, oh god, this is I don't know, it felt uncomfortable, like they're targeting us, or they're onto us, we don't know, or like they're going to tell us like these are our seats, or where are these other people who are regular season goers, or whatever. But they ended up being really nice, and we're talking to them throughout the game. We're like, they're telling us about the stadium. It's a man and a wife, and the wife had Wisconsin ties too, of course. So we're just going back and forth with all these things. We're buying them drinks, they're buying us drinks. They're season ticket holders. We're just having a great time, basically just watching the game with this couple, and just having an awesome time with basically strangers, And before the end of the game, they were asking for our information, and they gave us tickets, those 2 tickets, which is front row to the next day on the 200 level.
Nice.
So it's crazy how it worked out, that like we we happened to sit there where we weren't supposed to be, and we ended up getting tickets from two Mariners fans who weren't going to go to the next day game, and they probably usually just sell them,
Yeah.
and they just gave them to us for nothing, just for hanging out with them, and just like, here, put them to good use. So
Most importantly, how was the pasta?
the pasta's pretty darn good, pretty darn good. I will say Millard Park food still outdoes any ballpark that I've been to.
Sure.
There's things I liked about Wrigley, having the fried onions right there and closer to a Chicago dog style and
Yeah.
things like that. But I love my Secret Stadium sauce.
Yeah.
And there's even when I went to spring training back in March, me and Billy, friend of the show, went to spring training. I could have gotten Secret Stadium sauce there, but I actually brought some from Wisconsin all the way on my trip back to Oregon. So I got some in the fridge right now.
Good. Good.
But overall, a great time, man. I love the ballpark. 2 fun games. The Brewers swept the series. There was a lot of other Brewers fans there. Seattle fans were so nice. I had a great time partying in Seattle that night. Everyone was so nice, and when they saw we were Brewers fans, they were just like, "Welcome to Seattle. Have a great time." And everyone, not just ballpark workers, but Mariners fans. I thought it was very nice.
It feels like 2 teams and 2 fan bases that echo each other very much so. Have not gotten the big success that the fan bases always want to, and are rebuilding with some hot young players, some of the best young players in the game, specifically Seattle, but also Milwaukee, and fan bases of, that are generally nice, hard to root against, and yeah, they echo a lot in my mind. So that's great to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought it was really cool. And there's not a rivalry like there in 1969 there were the Seattle Pilots. After
Right.
1 year they became the Milwaukee Brewers,
Yeah.
and even used the jerseys but just
Yes.
changed the lettering and stuff like that.
Scratched it out.
So both teams technically started in Seattle, and there's not really a rivalry there. So it was great to, I don't know, it's how I would want to be to fans from out of town that weren't Cubs or Cardinals fans as
Thank
well.
you. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Had we been wearing Texas Rangers or Angels gear, I'm sure that maybe wouldn't have been the case, one of the Mariners rivals. But we just felt so welcomed, and people were, giving us ideas of where to go, what to do, and other things to check out. Buy the crickets here, and everyone was like so accommodating, and not even just ballpark staff. It was a great time, and now I'm itching to scratch more off my list.
Yeah.
And then the All-Star game is in Seattle this year too, so now I'm thinking, well, maybe we go back up, or maybe we see what's up with those tickets from those people, because I still got their number. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool, man.
Hell yeah, great time.
Quite a journey.
Yes. So speaking of baseball and West baseball, a team is moving, and it's a team that you watched a movie about recently, right? The Oakland A's are following suit as the Raiders did, going from Oakland to Las Vegas. Sounds like over the next handful of years, which is kind of funny.
Has lost every professional sports team in all 4 sports. Warriors left them. Raiders left them. A's left them. The Seals in the NHL left them back in the early 80s, late 70s.
Okay, they did have a team, the Seals. Oh my God, that's crazy. Who did they become?
Did they become the Flames? I want to say they became, oh man, the Oakland Seals.
The California Golden Seals.
Look it up.
Holy cow. So they became the Hartford Whalers and then
the Whale.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay. San Francisco Seals became the California Seals, became the Oakland Seals, became the Bay Area Seals, became the California Seals, became the Cleveland Barons.
Okay. This is further back than I thought.
Wow. And also, and they used to play it at the Coliseum too.
Sure. Why not? Perfect spot for hockey.
What the hell? That's crazy to me.
Yeah, the A's leaving though. Yeah, I just watched Moneyball in a couple weeks ago. One of the great sports movies of all time.
What do you like about it? Because I might disagree with you on some stuff here, but it's more historical stuff.
I love everything about the explanation of the small market team, the Moneyball. I love the backstory of Billy Beane and how he became who he was. The tragedy of his playing career made him who he was. I think it's one of Brad Pitt's best performances in his career as Billy Beane. And the best part is the wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. He and Jonah Hill on the phone with 6 other GMs, wheeling and dealing guys, trying to snooker them into players they want and need. A young Chris Pratt as Scott Hatterberg, who serves
Awesome.
as the face of Moneyball, the face of statistical baseball in putting together a team. My only thing is they make it sound as though this changed the game, and they make it, I mean, it did change the game because many teams followed suit, specifically small market teams. They make it seem as though Oakland got a ton of success out of it, and Oakland continued to lose to the big market teams in Boston and New York. Never won anything despite this revolutionary. Now, other teams, the Tampa Bays, the Kansas Cities, those types of teams did use this new thought process to create championship teams.
And both of those teams have 2 World Series appearances.
Right.
But
both
Rays,
of them
with 2 completely different teams. The Royals were consecutively and a World Series champion, I believe, in 2015.
Yeah, with half the Brewers team on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it will end up leading to a teardown because you're constantly trying to shed salary in order to win. But Moneyball as a film, I think is a great sports movie. All in all, it echoes a lot of what you see in most sports movies. Him fighting with the old scouts about, I know what I'm doing. That you don't know what you're talking about. We got to go out and pay this guy. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I rewatch that movie kind of frequently.
So I think it's a very good movie, but I don't quite put it into my upper echelon of baseball movies because I get frustrated with the history of it, and a lot of it. So this is based on a book by Michael Lewis, and some of these issues are issues that I have with the book and not necessarily the movie. But to not mention that Oakland had 3 of the best pitchers in baseball all at the same time, and the statistic that they're really focusing on is on base percentage, right?
Right, that's the key.
Yeah. And so that's really what it's about. So not including pitching, I can kind of understand, but in terms of that team's success, you had 3 of the best pitchers in the game at the time: Barry Zito, you had Mark Mulder, and Tim Hudson. All 3 went on to have play with other teams and do pretty well. Barry Zito kind of flamed out, I guess, after he left Oakland, but Hudson with the Braves, Mulder with the Cardinals.
All still there at that time? Because at the start of the story, they're losing Isringhausen, Giambi, all these guys.
Yeah.
Were all 3 of those guys still there at that point?
I believe
Zito
so.
left?
Yeah, so they had all 3 at the same time. Do you remember what year?
This would have been 1996. Giambi leaves 90.
I think maybe a little bit later.
8. Giambi leaves 9. They still have Tejada. He hadn't left yet.
So it's in 2001. Giambi was still on the team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. Maybe it's 2002 that this.
What year did Giambi sign with the Yankees? This is good radio.
This is great stuff. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so
I'm looking. He signed with the Yankees in 2002. So this was the 2002 season is what we're focused on.
Yep. And so they did have Zito, Mulder, and Hudson. So you had 3 of the top pitchers, starting pitchers at the time. And then you also had Miguel Tejada, who was the MVP that year in 2002. So like they also don't really talk about Miguel Tejada. So
no, he's really only talked about through a radio broadcast. You hear his name mentioned. There's a hit by Tejada, and I'm like, that guy would go on to become the next Giambi and then take a ton of money to leave town.
Exactly, and one of the best shortstops, especially hitting shortstops of his era. Some of those Baltimore teams. So that is my frustration, I guess, with it, is that it doesn't go into those things about why the team was so good. And I know the idea is that it's about the specific stat on base percentage and not what the pitchers did or how awesome Miguel Tejada was. But you'd think that would be included in it. So that's why sometimes I downgrade it a little bit. But it is a
That's
great
fair.
movie, and it's interesting that you say that is your top Brad Pitt performance.
It's right up there. Yeah, I think he's great in that because he's asked to do a lot. I
Well,
love Brad Pitt, but a lot of times he gets away with good looks and charm.
and so
Um,
that okay, so that's what I wanted to mention is like he's one of those guys who people love, and he's a big name box office top dollar type of actor, right? We all
yeah,
know Brad Pitt. We all have a handful of movies that we love with him, but he's doesn't stray too much from character to character. Whereas I agree with you, playing Billy Bean, it felt like he was somebody else. So
yeah.
I do like that.
I have learned in recent years. I look a perfect example is a film that just came out last week over on Apple TV. There's a film called Ghosted that just came out. Chris Evans, Anna de Armas spy film. That's just it's horrible. It's awful. And I realized watching this that between this and The Gray Man, which was on Netflix last year, another Chris Evans film, that yeah, good looks and charm only take you so far when you make bad choices, and that's what Chris Evans is, in my opinion, has been making bad choices. Brad Pitt, good choice.
Yeah.
I got to act. I can't just put on the suit, and do something. So
No, that's great. There's because even with the lack of variety in Brad Pitt roles, there's like I just love him. I love Fight Club. I love Ocean's 11. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
all any sort of stuff. And
I love
12
every time he fights a Nazi. I love it.
oh my god, Inglorious Bastards, 12 Monkeys, he's a little out there. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's at times little variation, but I think I don't know. He
it's
does.
good
You're
stuff.
right. Great choices. Did you see Bullet Train? Should I see
Of
Bullet Train?
course. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of
Okay.
fun.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty much what I've gotten from most people is that
yeah. It's a
it's
good
a
time.
good time. Well, you've go ahead. Did you have something?
No, I was going to ask you. You'll probably get around to Bullet Train in like 10, 12 years. But
Yeah.
have you? What have you seen recently that you want to talk about? I'm very curious.
So when I watched this movie earlier this week with my girlfriend, it's something that I was like, oh, this probably came out 6-7 years ago. I'm usually pretty good about when a movie came out. That's my
Yeah.
party trick, is I'm within 1 year. A lot of that is
Uh-huh.
because of the training of Pop Culture Time Capsule. That now
Sure.
it's I just have that with me now, which is like I said, my great party trick. Um, and it was actually 9 years ago that Nightcrawler came out with
Oh,
Jake Gyllenhaal.
that was my favorite movie that year.
So much fun.
I was so upset that he was not nominated for Best Actor that year because I'm like, this was a performance.
Yeah.
He becomes a feral person in this movie.
Yeah. And that's why, like, that's he's had such a great transformation, and I know you'll talk about it being Bubble Boy and just the things and we talk about the lack of variety in Brad Pitt, but Jake Gyllenhaal has really taken on so many. I mean, End of Watch, loved it.
Yes.
Nightcrawler, of course, loved it. As Mysterio and the Spider-Man villain, awesome.
Yeah.
He's really got like great acting chops. Like
He's got a new
he's
movie
awesome.
that's out in theaters right now. The new Guy Ritchie film, The Covenant, war film. He's done several war films with Jarhead and such, but he's really good in this movie. Yeah.
There's another one on Netflix I want to see from around the same time. Maybe it's called Prisoner.
Oh, with he and Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, how is that?
Buddy, that is a great film. That's Denis Villeneuve, who does Dune and all the Sicario, all these great movies. That movie is brutal. I believe Paul Dano as well.
Yeah, another reason why I wanted to see
Oh
it.
my
So,
god, that movie is brutal.
does it have shades of True Detective somewhat? Or I got those vibes a little bit from watching the trailer, but
Kind of, yeah, kind of. It's about an obsessed dad who's after who he thinks snatched his kid, and he comes off the rails. Yeah, I love that movie. It's
so I need
not
to
one
check.
you want to rewatch a bunch,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one to watch. Absolutely.
Okay, hell yeah. Okay, it's great that you mentioned this because the other movie that I saw recently that I don't think we talked about was Dune.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, it took a while. I think we watched it in two parts because it's just that long and it was late at night.
Sure.
But I had a great time with it. People had talked it up. I was interested in seeing it just because of who was in it, and it seemed like a big deal. And when I was working at the radio station a year and a half ago, there was a guy who was a big wrestling fan. He's actually a pro wrestling referee in the
No.
Pacific Northwest, and it was great. I was like, oh, this is the guy who's training me for my radio job. It was awesome. And he made some comment that made me think like, are you a wrestling fan? And he was reading the books and was just all the Dune was about to come out at the time, and he was just talking it up and just telling me like, this is, it almost makes Star Wars look like kid stuff. And I love the movie because it took such a serious, like, it didn't have some of those campy, hokey, cheesy things that I do sometimes love about Star Wars, but it was like very serious, straightforward sci-fi, great cast. I thought Dune was awesome, and I know it won. I know that it was nominated for a bunch of awards and won some,
It
rightfully
won
so.
4 or 5 Academy Awards. Was that 2 years ago now? All technical awards.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then the sequel, part 2, is coming out later this year.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of my favorite movies of 2021, I guess it would be. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Are you a fan of? Did you? I mean, the original one is kind of known as a big flop, but people like loved the
Yeah,
idea.
the David Lynch film. Yeah, I remember being sold that thing as a bill of goods as a kid when it first came out. I don't know. I don't know if I told you this, but when I was a kid, the way I got into Star Wars was my next door neighbor, his older brother, who was older than us, was like, "I just saw this. I just saw Star Wars. You guys got to check it out." And I'm like, "Oh." Um, Watched it, changed my life, and then a year or two later, he's like, "Oh, you like Empire Strikes Back, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." He's like, "You should watch Dune." So I'm like, "Mom, we gotta rent Dune." Go down, get the VHS, watch it, and the whole time I'm going, "Man, Eric said this was going to be good," and it's boring, really disjointed, odd, very David Lynch. And over my lifetime, probably 5 different times I've gone back to it and like, all right, I'm going to try Dune again because it's. I mean, maybe I just was too young. And every time I watch, it, I go, yeah, it's got huge issues. It's got massive problems, and I'm not the only one that thinks this. But when they announced that Denis Villeneuve, who is one of my favorite filmmakers, was going to be making a remake of the books, I reread the first book. I over my shoulder, I have the rest of the series on book that I am hoping to get to. Um, Reading is really difficult. And
It is. It's hard to put aside the time to do that.
it is. And so yeah, I kind of fell into that world all over again. I love it. I do. It's hard because I'm a Star Wars nerd and I'll defend it, but Dune is a much superior intellectual property as far as making you actually think and how it's fleshed out and all that. But I'll lie and say that Star Wars is still better. Hey, speaking of which, I picked up a book this week, totally apropos of nothing. I was at the film fest this week. I picked up a book because there was a local bookstore down there selling books about movies in the lobby, and I'm there 13 hours a day. I got free time. I can only look at my phone so much. So I picked up a couple of different books, and one of them, I thought of you, was a book about how the films of 1999 changed the world.
Oh yes.
And it is great. And it kind of goes chapter by chapter, going like a movie per chapter. And it starts off talking about Y2K and how all this stuff's set up. And then it goes right into Fight Club. And then it goes into The Matrix and Election. And so each chapter is like a different movie and how it really encapsulated the turning of the century and
Yeah.
kind of changed film, changed society. It's really interesting. And I was like, oh, I know a guy who would like this book.
I'm into it. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's probably the era that I saw the most movies where I felt like weekly I was going to a movie that I love to this day. And
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember a stretch of like Never Been Kissed, Detroit Rock City, In
Yep.
Too Deep.
Nice.
I mean, just Deuce Bigelow, perhaps.
Sure, why not?
A very fun rated R comedy to me. But yeah, there's just a stretch there where it's just like so much good stuff from 1999. I'm sure Bruce Willis had a huge movie then too.
When I'm done reading this thing, I'm going to send it to you so you can expect this in about 10 to 12 years, but it'll show up randomly the way I read.
Oh, that's great. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So Dune by the end of the year.
Yes.
Okay,
Dune is
sweet.
coming out, I
Did they
believe,
do
in November.
did they film multiple movies at a time, or It's a
Um,
great, incredible cast, ensemble cast.
yeah, so they had filmed part of part 2 from what I understand. But Villeneuve was waiting to get the okay and the financing from Warner Brothers to do part 2. Everyone, even though everyone knew this property, his cachet as a filmmaker, this cast, there's obviously going to be a two-parter.
At
But he kept
least.
saying, like, well, we'll see. And it came out at the tail end of the pandemic, so it was a streaming release with limited theatrical release, whereas now it's going to be straight theatrical release.
Good.
But that was kind of limiting factor. Like, well, if it goes out streaming, are they going to justify this budget that I need to make the part 2? But
Yeah.
thankfully they did. So I'm incredibly excited for it.
Yeah. I had such a good time with it. I loved the everything. There was a bunch of actors I loved. I think the story was really good. I think it was what I would hope for in a modern sci-fi movie, and
Yeah.
I am very excited for more of it. And it felt great because it was like, oh man, we're just getting started. It felt like a great beginning to something. So I would hope for a few more films, hopefully, but we'll have to
We'll
see.
see. Supposedly this is going to wrap up the first book, but there is a large universe after that first book.
Perfect.
But yeah, this
Perfect.
comes out November 3rd. So I am incredibly excited for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your movie festival.
Sure.
What was your role? What was the festival? What are some of the best things that you saw?
Yeah, the Wisconsin Film Festival. We were celebrating our 25th anniversary this year of the Wisconsin Film Festival. I've been working there, volunteering / working there for 14 years. I started, years ago going to it as just a film goer, and then started volunteering. And now for the last maybe 7 years, I've been a paid staff member for the film festival. And I help myself and a couple others help run one of the big theater chain that we do there. We have 3 theaters, and it's my job to just kind of make sure the people get in, the movies play, just everything, right? Just whatever. And one of the perks is you get to watch a lot of films, get to discuss a lot of films with people. Got a huge staff of volunteers that were awesome, and you know we don't show any bad movies. I mean, they're curated really well by the team that selects the films. That they go to all the film festivals around the globe, watching movies, striking deals to get rights to show movies, and really curate a wide ranging showing of films. We usually have like 160 films and all genres and all languages. It's great. This year, no different. I got to watch some really great films, some really wild films. And then a lot of times watching bits and pieces of films, watching part of a film and then having to go do something else in the other place. But really cool. And got to see some fun ones and some wild ones. Every year, like Film Fest films are near the top of my list because they're ones that you're not just going to stumble on otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watched a lot of documentaries. I love catching documentaries there. Watched one. There was a documentary about documentaries that I absolutely loved.
That's what I wanted to okay, that's one of
Okay.
that I wanted to ask you about. Tell me
Yes.
about this. So it's a movie about
It's a documentary about documentaries. It's called Subject, and it's about the great documentaries that have been made, over the last 30, 40 years, but specifically focusing on kind of this golden age of documentary or access to documentaries we've gotten with the uprise of streaming channels and such. And it kind of widely shows, I don't know, 100 and some docs, but then kind of narrows in a focus of maybe 6 documentaries and follows up with the subjects of those documentaries. So we go find Arthur Agee, one of the kids in Hoop Dreams. We go find one of the daughters in the Netflix series, The Staircase.
Oh,
One of the
wow.
we go and find, oh man, now one of the son in Capturing the Freedmans, and the kids from the Wolf Pack, and a few others. I'm drawing a blank now, but we kind of follow them and catch up with them, and then they raise a lot of ethical questions about documentary filmmaking and how this has affected these people's lives. And because you're never going to be the same no matter what after a film crew comes in, captures your life for a period of time, puts it out for mass consumption. Is that really you? Is that a fair representation of you? They bring up the idea of, should the subjects of documentaries be paid? Some filmmakers say yeah, it's their content, it's their life. We should pay them. Some say no, because then they start acting differently if you're paying them, and it changes the relationship. The ethics of representation of filmmakers, because Hoop Dreams. It's a 35-year-old white guy directing this movie. Is he the guy to tell this story of poor young African American youth in Chicago? Um, for some people, they're like, it was horrible. It ruined my life. It wasn't fair to me. Other people like Arthur Agee, the kid from Hoop Dreams, is like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change a thing. So it was really interesting. They raised a lot of questions.
Well, that's always interesting to me is how when you do a documentary and it's supposed to be kind of from a neutral perspective, but
Yeah,
definitely people come out looking like the villain, and even to the point where if you see that cut or that clip to where it's writing on the screen or typed out of just like we contacted this
yeah,
person or their law firm and they refused to comment or did not return our calls or whatever, and now you're just kind of getting other people to tell this story from one side and you're not really hearing the other side. and
yeah,
and then also this is an issue that Vince McMahon and WWE would have when they were in the 90s. They allowed two documentaries to be filmed about how what they said, like it wasn't going to be in major theaters because this is for kind of a non-profit situation, whereas that's really not the case in a lot of times where like there is an edge or a reason why that film is being made
right,
to maybe get out a certain point where it's supposed to
exactly.
tell a
Create a
story.
narrative.
Yes.
And that's one of the interesting things too. One of the things that I really appreciate the most about this documentary was they brought up the corporatization of documentaries now. You go onto Netflix and that feels like 2/3 of their productions now are true crime series, documentaries. It's a massive thing, right? You
Yeah.
go on their recommendations, they're recommending them to you constantly. Um, and they say, if it's a big huge company and they're just focusing, just churning out it's content to them, as opposed to a personal nature of, I want to tell your story and I want to be true to you and I just want to show it, as opposed to a multi-billion-dollar company be like, your content to us. And that's kind of in the title is like, these people are people, they're not subjects, and they're treated now as subjects of things by these corporate Amazon, all these people churning them out. It's like, we just want to get something out there and try and make it into 6 episodes of a series or what have you, as opposed to forming a relationship with the people that you're telling a story about and being fair to them. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I love watching documentaries on Netflix, but there's a lot of times I feel dirty because I'm like, that doesn't feel like, this feels like a one-sided story. This feels like they
Yes.
didn't do their due diligence, and I
Sure.
don't like that at all.
And even just another wrestling point, I guess, with the documentaries is that like the winners get to tell the
Yeah,
history in
right.
in a lot of ways. So
Yep.
like when WWE puts out a documentary about the Monday Night Wars from the 90s, or they have a documentary series on A&E, it's really you're getting just one side
Yeah.
for the most part
Yep.
and not the full story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's called Subject.
Subject. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see who ends up picking it up for streaming, because right now it's just out on the festival circuit. But I'm assuming that it'll be picked up by one of the giant streaming companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Just lots of really fun films this year that I really dug. Um, and a lot of these will be coming soon to theaters and streaming. Like some of them are just now hitting theaters like 2 weeks later. You just get to see them a little early.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm hoping to see. Like we showed one called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is a really interesting film. I'm assuming that will be out on Netflix shortly. And then we show a lot of like older films. Like this year we showed a beautiful digital restoration of Real Genius, which I love. I love some Val Kilmer.
That's
Um,
awesome.
got talking to a lady. So the head of Sony digital restoration is a lady who is from Sun Prairie, right here where I live. And she and I got talking because she brings every year like 6 or 7 movies from Sony's restoration to show at the film fest, films that haven't been seen before. And she and I got talking, and I'm like, oh, you're from the same place I am. Like, when did you graduate? Found out she graduated the year before I did. I don't recognize her name. She doesn't recognize my name. And she goes, well, I was a big theater dork. And I was like, well, I was a big choir nerd. And she's like, oh, do you know so-and-so? I said, yeah, I'm friends with her and her husband still to this day. And she's like, oh. She goes, what about this girl? I'm like, I dated her younger sister and took her to prom. How did we never cross paths? So weird.
Yeah.
And she sat and
Wow.
explained to me the whole process of restoring these films and how small, tight-knit community it is of people that do this. And one of the films she brought was a Humphrey Bogart classic, and she got the original print of it to work with. And that's usually what they get. And this thing was so beaten up over years of being replayed and copied that she had to go to the Library of Congress and get the original nitrate print and use that to try and make it a 4K digital.
Wow.
I was fascinated. I was like, take me to LA with you. I just want to watch you work because that is awesome.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And got to see a bunch of really fun people. Outside of the film fest, a lot of fun stories about film fest, but during the same time period, I also went to my local Cineplex to watch the new Nicolas Cage movie Renfield, the
Yes.
Dracula movie.
Yep.
Fun movie, totally fine, gory, over the top. I had a blast. But when I was going in to see the movie, one of the lovely staff people that I talked to there said, let me tell you what you just missed here last night. I said, what happened? They said, we were showing a movie. It was a religious film. And a local church bought the entire theater out for this film. Yeah, pretty standard. They said one of our ushers went in at one point in the middle of the film, and people were standing on the seats, jumping up and down on our seats, having like an old school tent revival in the theater to this movie. I was like, all right, well, that's kind of rude to jump on the seats. Those are nice leather dream loungers. And then they started forcing themselves to vomit all over the place because the movie told them they need to vomit out the demons. And so they decided to do that in our movie theater. I said, no way. Right? She's telling me this as I'm going into the theater. I come out. She flags me down. She goes, you're never going to believe what just happened. I said, tell me. She said, that same theater, we're showing a different movie tonight. Same theater. We just had somebody pass out. We had to have the ambulance come and get them. I said, oh, they didn't get all those demons up last night, apparently. That theater.
What the hell, dude?
Yeah, right? Like, I'm sorry I missed it. Oh, man. Fun times. Fun times at movies.
Yeah. There's been a few like demon or religious movies, whether it be Evil Dead Rise and then the
Pope's Exorcist.
There you go. Thank you. That was the other one.
Yeah.
So was that one of the movies, or was it a totally separate thing where they were
totally
told
different? No, this was like some one night only showing of some religious film. Yeah.
What the hell?
I'm sorry I missed it.
That's some weird cult stuff.
I know. I said, well, I'm glad it's in this theater, not my theater.
Well, that's terrifying to be the usher to walk in and witness that. Like, that's the stuff of nightmares.
It's like some 17-year-old kid making minimum wage. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Okay, so even though it's the Wisconsin Film Festival, it's not limited to filmmakers from Wisconsin it's from everywhere. When you mentioned languages and stuff like that, I guess I had an idea that it was more, a little bit.
No, we have a section that is Wisconsin's own filmmakers. They have their own section of the fest, but no, it's international. Like for a number of years there, I think whoever curated the films had an obsession with films from Iceland. And for like a 6-year stretch, I saw every movie that the Icelandic Film Institute put out. Yeah. I was like, I'm 100% on them. They only make like 3 movies a year, and we get them all at this film fest. And the other great part is we bring in filmmakers. So we get to meet and talk to the filmmakers that make a lot of these movies. And it's really interesting to kind of get their perspective and do Q&As with them. And yeah, really, really a lot of fun. Some of my favorite films that I saw at the fest, where there was one that's from Bosnia. That was incredible. One from Nigeria. That was great. Mami Wata from Nigeria. That was a great film. But yeah, we're kind of all over the place with it. So get great feedback. And we're kind of curious what we're going to do next year because our theater's getting torn down now. So we're going to wait and see what happens next year. But the film fest shall continue. I hope so.
Where's it currently been? Like what city
It's
and what
it's in
theaters?
Madison.
Okay.
And it's we have a few places on campus that we show, but then I work out of the former Sundance Cinemas / now
That's what I
AMC.
thought from the pictures that you were at the old
Yeah, but
Sundance.
AMC shut down, and now the place that owns that is going to demolish it. And so we had to have a special contract. We got to show the last movie ever in this building before they demolish it. We showed the
Wow.
last picture show and then left. And I was looting everything that said Sundance in that place on my way out. But
Of course.
and then went straight from that. That led to me getting a gig, getting contacted by a lady from Amazon Prime Video to be a Prime rep. And then this week I was at a different theater showing the first couple episodes of a new Prime series that's going to be coming out next month called The Citadel.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
I've seen a
Stan.
lot of
Have you?
previews for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we, they had me and one other person in there. They had 230 people come to watch this sneak preview of the first couple episodes.
Yeah. Looks like a Jason Bourne-ish kind of
It's
Jack Reacher series, perhaps.
two spies who don't have a memory that they're spies.
Yeah.
Stanley Tucci is their handler. Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra are the two spies. A lot of fun. I handed out prizes. One kid won a big ass drone. Somebody won a spy kit. I don't know. It was a good time. And then had to get feedback from people and such. That was kind of fun. It
Oh
was
yeah.
great trying to curate feedback. One kid came up. He was so excited. He was dying to give me feedback about it. I'm like, okay, good. This is what I need. What do you think? And I didn't watch part of the second episode because I was getting things set up outside the theater. He came up, he goes, I loved it. I loved it so much. I didn't love the cuts, a lot of cuts, and I don't like it when things go upside down. And I go, all right, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think we're going to use this quote. I don't like it when things go upside down.
Oh my God.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Cool. I don't think you're going to see this quote on the poster, though. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Fun stuff. Yeah, fun with movies.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, any final thoughts?
Oh, just Jerry Springer just passed away yesterday, and I wondered what his final thought was. Frony, be good to yourself and each other.
Oh my God.
All right, I think Jerry Springer.
That's right. I think that's a good way to end the show.
All right, great.
Thanks for checking us out. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, all that jazz. We are Ant and Rabbitt. We'll catch you next time.